Emma Chen had been a nurse for 7 years, but some days still felt like the first. Today was one of them. She sat in the hospital's blood donation center, her sleeve rolled up, watching the deep red liquid flow through the tube. Around her, the fluorescent lights hummed their usual song, and she could hear the distant beeping of monitors down the hall. At 32, Emma had donated blood more times than she could count. It was just something she did, like drinking her morning coffee or calling her mother on Sundays. "You're a regular hero." "Emma," said Rita, the phlebotomist, an older woman with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. "This is your 20th donation," Emma smiled softly. "I'm just doing what I can. Someone out there needs it more than I do." What Emma didn't know was that across the hospital, in the intensive care unit, a man named James Hartford was fighting for his life. James was 58 years old, a self-made millionaire who'd built his fortune in real estate. But money couldn't help him now. He'd been in a severe car accident 3 days ago, and he was losing blood faster than the doctors could replace it. His rare blood type made finding donors difficult. Time was running out. Dr. Michael Richardson, the trauma surgeon, stood at James's bedside, his weathered face lined with concern. "We need that blood now," he said quietly to the head nurse. "Check with the donation center again." Minutes later, Emma's donation was being rushed upstairs. She didn't ask who would receive it. She never did. That wasn't why she gave. After her donation, Emma went back to her shift in the cardiology ward. She moved through her rounds with the same gentle care she always showed, checking on Mr. Patterson's heart rate, helping Mrs. Kim walk down the hallway, listening to young Tommy Wilson talk about his baseball card collection. "You remind me of my daughter," Mr. Patterson said, his voice rough with age, always thinking of others. "Thank you," Emma replied, adjusting his pillows. "That's very kind." 3 weeks passed. James Hartford slowly recovered in a private room on the 4th floor. Emma didn't work that floor, so their paths never crossed. She went about her days, unaware that her blood was flowing through a stranger's veins, keeping him alive, giving him a second chance. James was a widower. His wife, Caroline, had passed away 5 years ago from cancer, leaving him alone to raise their daughter, Sophie, who was now 25 and working as a teacher in Seattle. The accident had shaken him deeply. Lying in that hospital bed, unable to move, unable to do anything but think, James realized how much of life he'd been missing. He'd spent so many years building his empire, making money, closing deals. But what did any of it matter if you had no one to share it with? One afternoon, as James sat in his wheelchair in the hospital garden, enjoying the autumn sunshine, he asked his nurse about the blood donor. "I'd like to thank them," he said simply. "Whoever gave me their blood. I'd like to meet them." The nurse, a young man named David, smiled. "I can check with the donation center. Sometimes donors are willing to meet recipients." It took another week, but eventually the hospital facilitated a meeting. Emma was surprised when she received the call. "A patient would like to meet you," Rita explained. "You donated blood last month, and it went to a man who was critically injured. He's recovering well now, and he'd like to say thank you in person." Emma felt a flutter in her chest. She'd never met a recipient before. "Of course," she said. "I'd be honored." They arranged to meet in the hospital's quiet garden on a Thursday afternoon. Emma walked down the path, her white sneakers crunching on the gravel, until she saw him sitting on a bench near the rose bushes. He was older, with silver hair and kind blue eyes that crinkled at the corners. Despite the wheelchair and the thin frame that spoke of his recent ordeal, there was dignity in the way he held himself. "Emma?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Yes. And you must be Mr. Hartford." "James, please." He gestured to the bench beside him. "Would you sit with me for a moment?" Emma sat down, folding her hands in her lap. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the garden. "I wanted to thank you," James said, his voice catching slightly. "The doctors told me I wouldn't have made it without that blood transfusion." "You saved my life, Emma, and you didn't even know me." Emma felt her throat tighten. "I'm just glad you're okay. That's what matters." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the birds sing in the trees. "I've been thinking a lot lately," James continued, about what's important in life. I built a successful business, made more money than I could ever spend. But lying in that hospital bed, I realized something. The most valuable things in life aren't things at all. They're moments like this. They're acts of kindness from strangers. They're connections between human beings. Emma nodded slowly. My grandmother used to say that we're all just walking each other home. We're all in this together. Your grandmother was a wise woman, James said with a smile. I'd like to do something for you, Emma. Not because I think kindness needs to be repaid with money, but because I want to honor what you did. I'd like to set up a scholarship in your name at the nursing school to help other young people become caregivers like you. Emma's eyes widened. James, that's incredibly generous. But you don't have to. I know I don't have to, he interrupted gently. I want to. Your kindness reminded me why we're here. To help each other. To give what we can. This is my way of passing it forward. Tears pricked Emma's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Over the following months, Emma and James became friends. He would come to the hospital for his follow-up appointments, and they would meet in the garden afterward, talking about life, sharing stories, laughing together. James told Emma about his late wife, about how much he missed her, about his daughter Sophie, who was teaching children to read in Seattle. You should visit her, Emma encouraged. Life's too short to let distance keep you apart, James took her advice. He flew to Seattle and spent 2 weeks with Sophie, really spending time with her, not just squeezing her in between business meetings like he used to. They cooked together, walked along the waterfront, talked about memories of Caroline. It was the healing James didn't know he needed. The scholarship fund was established that spring. The Emma Chen Nursing Scholarship would help 5 students every year pursue their dreams of becoming nurses. At the dedication ceremony, Emma stood beside James, overwhelmed by the generosity of it all. You changed my life, James said in his speech. Not just by giving blood, but by reminding me what it means to be human. To give without expecting anything in return. That's the kind of world I want to live in. That's the kind of legacy worth building. Emma wiped away tears as the audience applauded. Years later, Emma would sometimes sit in that same hospital garden, watching new nurses walk by, young and hopeful and ready to make a difference. She thought about that autumn day when she donated blood, never imagining where it would lead. She thought about James, who had passed away peacefully at 73, surrounded by family, his daughter Sophie holding his hand. In his will, he had left the bulk of his fortune to various charities, but he had also left a trust to keep the nursing scholarship running forever. Hundreds of nurses would be trained because of it. Thousands of patients would be helped, all because one person chose to give what they could, when they could, without expecting anything in return. That, Emma realized, was the real gift. Not the blood itself, but the reminder that we're all connected. That small acts of kindness ripple outward in ways we can never predict. That we're all just walking each other home, one gentle step at a time, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything